Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Keep It Spiritually Simple. I'm your host, Sandra McEllis, and today we have our amazing guest again, Dr. Nancy Clark, and we are going through her book, Ascendance. If you don't have it, I strongly suggest you get on Amazon and get it. It's also in audio. So she's got a multitude of books that we have discussed on this channel. So that you don't miss any episodes, please subscribe, hit that like, leave us a comment. By all means, share the show with all your friends and fam. All right, so let's get right to it. Dr. Nancy, we are on Ascendance, page 7, continuation of our other episodes. Let's rock.
Okay. Just wanted to quick remind people, this book is written in entry form. So that's why it's so popular is you don't have to read a whole chapter to get all the wisdoms out of it. You can just open it up to any page and it's all in entries. So it might be a sentence or two, could be a paragraph, but a lot of times it's just a couple of sentences. And I took 20 years of my spiritual notes, compiled them all together, put it into entry form. So it was quick, concise, and to the point. And so that's why we're going through all these wisdoms because they pull out so much within these different entries. But we'll get started. So, soul requires the experience of physicality to experience all the potentialities during a life filled with challenges. Soul needs to master duality and therefore requires incarnating into physical form. Care for your physical body, which is the temple of the soul, by providing proper food, movement, and rest. You will one day wake up from this waking dream called life, learn to connect with Source to offer a greater outcome for yourself and humanity. We kind of tapped on this a little bit in our prior episode, but what's really nice is we were talking about why so many people require so many lifetimes or why a lifetime at all. And again, its soul requires so much experience that a lifetime gives, and also that we're here to master duality. And boy, do we master duality. One thing I have to say is every person, when they leave the earth school, is a master at duality. They have mastered that because from the moment you open your eyes, everything is dual in nature here. Night and day, male, female, good and bad, left and right, up and down. There's always an opposite to everything. And so our entire life, we are dealing and working within duality. So we become masters at it. And also, it talks about how the potentialities during a life filled with challenges, and we learn so much through challenges. I know we get tired of the challenges and the darkness and the corruption and the frustrations and all of this stuff and the tests, but it sharpens us. It really sharpens the sword, and it really hones our skills, and we're here to pass the tests and accomplish our goals. Nobody incarnates with no goals. We all have goals. And so yes, that's one of the things. And also at the very end, it completes at the top of page 8 that to connect with Source to offer a greater outcome for yourself and humanity. I think that's really important. We get so busy in this lifetime that it's nice for us to check in and remember our true identity, why we came here, why now, and that type of thing. So what did this entry mean for you when I read it?
Well, I'm still kind of processing it. I think for me, it's just I like the duality. I mean, we don't really have a choice. It is kind of nice. And I guess because I've studied polarity a lot. But I also feel like we're starting to end some of the polarities and blend them more towards one side. I don't know. That's just something that came up for me a number of years ago. So caring for the physical body because it is the avatar for the soul. So some want to call, your physical body the temple, but your soul is the temple, which I found interesting in what you wrote here. But either way, our physical body is what carries and houses the essence of the soul and its soul's mission or its goals that it's choosing to to go through in this invisible obstacle course we call Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The human body temple, because it
Yes.
houses the soul.
Yes.
Yes. The next entry is the top of page 8. With the gift of free will, souls choose to play in light or darkness. Souls were created with the highest frequency of love. Beings who choose light view life in oneness and have compassion for all of creation. Beings who choose darkness desire to deceive, and this turns to evil, causing more movement away from source. Souls choose to work for the divine plan or have rebelled against the divine plan of source. Light always prevails over darkness, regardless of appearances in the lower regions. Those who are harmed physically are covered in light and return to their origin dimension. Shine your light and remember your true identity as a piece of source. So there's a lot in this one. First of all, we get into free will. And, people have this back and forth. Well, is it destiny or free will? Well, it's actually both. Both play a role in our life here in the Earth School. And souls choose to play in light or darkness. And this is because you have free will. You can choose service to the divine plan or choose to go against service to the divine plan. And again, some souls learn more through darkness, playing in darkness, than they do the light. So eventually, at some point, they do come back to the light. Could be many lifetimes. However, because of free will, this verifies and proves we have free will because we're not forced to serve the divine plan and serve the light. Some souls don't choose to serve the divine plan and therefore play in darkness instead. And souls were created with the highest frequency of love. And this is so true. Those that choose light view life in oneness because you recognize that all is source and that we're all a part of source. And there's this oneness. There is nothing other but source. And therefore, beings who choose darkness have and it's very interesting because I know people will say, well, if you're saying that if they choose darkness and causing them movement away from source, well, how could they move away from source if they are source, just deceive themselves and therefore wanting to step further away? So that's where words kind of have a hard time explaining these concepts. Yes, you are still, even though you're playing in darkness, you've deceived actually themselves because really their true identity is source. And like I always say, you can't be separate from that which you are made of. But when you get into this third dimensional reality or some of these lower densities, you can forget your true identity and you can also play this game. Then you deceive even yourself that you can play in darkness and say, well, I can get away with this, all this evil that I create into the world, even though it hurts a lot of us souls. And so, but there's lies the challenges that's given to a lot of us because we're in such a dark and challenging, the earth plane. So it's almost like if I had a board, I'd write where you have source and light on one side and you had darkness and evil on the other. And then there's this scale, this pole, and souls kind of slide along this pole, and some choose to pretty much always serve the light and stay close in this lightness. And then others, through this decision, ill thought out decision, and then this ill thought out causes them to make another ill thought out decision, which causes another ill thought out cause, which slides them, and they don't realize they're sliding more and more closer, deeper into the darkness. And so, yes, you are source, but you can play in light or darkness. And therefore, souls choose to work for the divine plan or have rebelled against the divine plan of source. Again, another that proves that we do have free will. Light always prevails over darkness, regardless of appearances. And this I thought was very interesting. those that are harmed physically are covered by the light and return to their origin dimension. And this is regarding, let's say, these light warriors that go out and they do a lot of sacrifice, and sometimes they lose their life in service to the divine plan. But it's not really a loss in the sense that their souls go back to their dimension of origin, the frequency, the dimension that they resided prior to incarnating into physical form. And so, therefore, shine your light and remember your true identity as a piece of source.
Well, a couple things come up for me um, with my humorous self, and you're going to hear it here first because I don't share it that often. But sometimes when somebody's acting up, I'll say, "And you're a piece of source." Instead of saying a piece of shit, I go, and yeah, and you're a piece of source. And they'll go, what? Like expecting me to call them a name. I've referred to something else, right? It's kind of like that, go hug a cactus. Let me know how you feel, But as I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, so we have the polarity of dark and light, which is a opposite contrast. We have all kinds of things in between there. But sometimes we choose maybe to come down and be on the darker side in order to learn and maneuver back to the light. So it's lessons learned. And then, it was also coming to mind was like children. And sometimes you can say that particular child, I always knew something was off. And of course, they may have grown up to be serial killer or, something deranged or something like that. And so they're serving the dark, right? Through that. And whether they can pinpoint a particular trauma or a multitude of things or whatever it may be, but they are causing harm. So I have a little bit of an issue with that because I think for me, my motto has always been do no harm, whether it's by a word or a thought or an action, is to create light so that doesn't create harm before it exudes from my body. But I think what I'm stumbling over is to choose darkness and, desire to deceive. And again, I think about people who come in to play a part. So maybe I'm going to pop in and I'm going to be all light this lifetime. Maybe I'm going to pop in and I'm going to be, that devil's advocate, because what happens to the scenario of the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other, and they're each talking in your ear. And of course, there's this contraindication of the devil being good luck, right? Because it's making you think, it's making you be aware. And so it has me question, what is free will when it comes to this? And what if you're living this life in the dark and you don't actually see the light until you go back into your soul's form? And then you realize, did I actually play that part? Did I choose to play that part? Was there a part in that life where I could have stopped and turned in a different direction towards the light, so to speak? I don't know. I'm a little miffed and befuddled right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories that certain souls come in to play darkness, to play in darkness that but I don't know if that was because that was their frequency when they came to the earth plane. They came in at a lower frequency based on maybe their choices in prior lifetimes and it's so it's one of those mysteries, and it's just because we don't know when we're looking at a soul what their purpose is for coming to the earth and causing all this crime or heartache or wreckage. And we don't always have a deeper understanding of that because we're not that soul. We can only just kind of make an assessment based on maybe what we're viewing through our lenses. But there is there was a question that was asked. I asked this of spirit, and I said, why is Earth filled with so many souls of a low frequency? And they said, well, kindergarten has to reside somewhere. I mean, it's like, why do you think high level souls come into it? It's like everybody has to pull rotation. the higher level souls have to come in to watch the children, because they don't blow up the planet like Maldak, it's like it's been done before. The asteroid belt was Maldak, which is Maldak was a planet that existed, and so now it's the asteroid belt. So that's why, we have these certain guards in place so that doesn't take place again. We're not allowed to destroy. We're here to live on the planet, but we're not allowed to destroy the planet. And but there's a lot of souls that come in at a very low frequency, and that's why it's very hard for a lot of high level souls that come here, because you're in kindergarten. It's tough, and it's very hard, but that's part of our service to the divine plan, and that's part of being, I guess you could say, a parent to younger souls. We know the 2-year-old acts up and causes, writes crayons on the walls, and mouths off and has all these temper tantrums and does all these things, and well, there's just you realize they're just an immature soul. They just don't know any better. They haven't matured enough to realize and become self-aware, awake and aware. But we realize at some point, as they mature, they do become more self-aware, and at some point they get to a level where they do awaken to their true identity, and therefore you look back and go, oh my gosh, I would have done those things if I had was awake. And I've heard a lot of advanced souls says, boy, before I was awake, I couldn't believe I hunted animals or I did all these things, but it's socially acceptable to hunt animals. We're allowed to do it, but now they would never think anything remotely of doing anything close to that. But they realize, well, when I was asleep, I made a lot of decisions that I never would do now that I'm fully awake. And so it's kind of similar to that, but I was very shocked by the answers. Like, well, everybody's got a pull rotation and watch the children. So I think that, we look at a lot of these souls, but a lot of these souls on the Earth school, in the Earth school, just haven't awakened yet. We've got a lot of sleepers yet, and they're going to start coming online and becoming awakened, and they're going to be realizing you came here for a divine purpose. And then when they become awakened, that's when a lot of these assignments are handed out, and that's when a lot of knowing who you are, why you came here, what your purpose work was, and all this stuff. And it's a real eye opener, let me tell you, because a lot of people, that's why they totally change their life when they become awakened. A lot of times they leave their jobs, they go into maybe a different profession, they leave the state, they go to maybe a different country, they're looking for a vibrational frequency match. And because so much has changed internally, it's going to affect you externally. It's going to bleed out into your external life. And so, yeah, this one is, free will is so huge. Source allows us the freedom, and I think that's what's so wonderful about Source, is it allows us the freedom to choose to serve the light or darkness. But ultimately, and I know this seems odd, but I pray for the dark angels all the time, and I ask them to return to the light. I said, haven't you had enough of playing in darkness? It's about time, you can come back. We're looking forward to you coming back and serving the light. And so I'm always praying for fallen angels and that have gotten lost in darkness. They wanted to play in it, and then they got lost and they got so deep into it. And sometimes we do have an archangel or one of the fallen angels that have turned back to the light. And it's such a huge celebration. It's like the prodigal son story, where they went out into the world and got lost in the world, and then they realize they miss home, and then they come back. And so, yeah, I just had to throw that out and share that.
Thank you. Hopefully it's making everyone in the audience think, because that's what these shows are all about. And that's what reading all of this is about.
Yeah, I think too, I don't think people are used to praying for the planet, surrounding the planet with light, using visualization. Close your eyes and visualize, this huge, powerful blanket of light surrounding the planet and all the people who are crying today and hurting today and hungry today and difficulties in their life. And that we start to really see ourselves as brother, sister souls. And and that also for those that are creating darkness and evil on the planet, to pray for them as well, because again, they're just not awakened yet. They're just not really aware of what they cause, and maybe playing in, we see it on TV. It's like, ooh, this person's, the thief, and we get so the story is about the thief, and we're like, well, will he be able to pull off the theft, and then we're, next thing you know, we're rooting for the thief, we're like, oh, I hope he's able to steal the masterpiece painting, let's see how he does it, and all this stuff. And but it's, yes, it's a real, this is real, in down here in the lower dimensions is, and even Jesus recognized whose dominion this was, and it was Lucifer's dominion. And he has a whole team of a third of, in the Luciferian rebellion, which talks about it in Genesis in the Bible, is a third of the angels, because of what took place up in the upper planes. They were asked to leave their vibrational frequency. They went against service to the divine plan. Their egos got involved, and they were sent to the lower dimensions. And guess where this is? This is in the lower dimensions. And so even Jesus recognized when he was out and he had the three temptations provided to him. He's, and Lucifer saying, hey, if you turn away from the light and you serve me, then together we can rule this dominion, this kingdom. And Jesus was like, I'm not interested in this kingdom. And he recognized whose kingdom it was. And so I think that also being self-aware is really helps us to not to be afraid, but just to be really aware of where we are in all these, amongst all these different dimensions. And so it's yeah, it is it's good that these conversations causes people to really think deeper and to kind of go, wow, I never really saw it that way. But yes, pray for the, and I'm not in a sense that you're asking something, because a lot of people think prayer is like, well, I want this new car, or I want this new whatever. It's not that. It's more of calling in and asking them, hey, it would be great for you to return back home and serve the light. And we just recently, a couple of years ago, had one. I wasn't given the name, I guess because of privacy. But we did recently, a couple of years ago, have a big, a, a dark angel return to the light, and there was this huge celebration. And as a result of that, the dark angel now is sharing the secrets on what's going on in this dimension to kind of help make these changes during this time of awakening, and as we've gone into this new era of the age of Aquarius and the golden era. So where I'm looking forward to seeing more dark angels switch over to the light. But yes, we do have free will, and we do have a choice. And I think too, it's important for people to realize, and they wake up in the morning, I choose to serve the light. So
Yeah, and it's funny you're saying that, because I remember, like, when I in real life stories, and then also, watching, television programs and things like that. And when someone was about to hurt someone, right? People would pray, oh, pray that they make it through, that they don't get hurt. And I used to say, pray for the one who's about to offend, that they can stop themselves.
mm-hmm.
It was so weird. Even as a kid, I would think that. It's like I was more praying not for that someone would survive something, but that the other person would awaken and stop themselves, you know? And I think that's why I'm really good at energy work and detecting people's energy that goes up and down. And then how do you temper that? How do you temper that so that you don't lash out and create harm physically, mentally, or emotionally? So yeah, this is extremely powerful.
Yeah, one
All
thing
right.
I wanted to share too, you brought up a good point, is I had a tech years ago, and he was so good. And it was during the time I was writing and publishing my books. And we were talking about security, cybersecurity, and also security on, your phone and laptops. If you go to a cafe and stuff, VPN, he was recommending VPN, that I use this and put it on, which I did. And I use it on my computers and stuff. But he says, I go into a cafe, and he was so super good at tech that he could go into a cafe, and if he wanted to, he can break into all the people's laptops in the cafe that did not have VPN. So I turned to him and I said, well, I'm so glad that you serve the light. So, because, he's like, oh, I wouldn't do that. So, but it was just kind of good, because I don't think he expected me to say that. But I think it was such a great attaboy, pat you on the back, good job, and because people don't realize, with every choice we make, we choose to serve light or darkness with every choice we make. So it's
Mhm.
not like, oh, well, in these first choices, it could be to serve the light, but then 5 choices later, we could be serving darkness. So being self-aware is very important. I think this was great that this came up, this conversation.
Yeah, and then that just brought up something about I watched a show, gosh, it had to be at least a decade ago. It was a burglar, an ex-burglar, and he had done time and all kinds of things. And then he was doing a show about how to protect your house from people like him that used to be him.
Mhm.
And then he started his own business, how to protect your
Mhm.
sliding glass door, how to protect your front door, what you know. And I was like, so he had to be on the other side in order to come back to this side so that he could equip people with
Mhm.
ways of protecting themselves that maybe they wouldn't have seen prior.
And that's what's so beautiful about this one dark angel that switched over to the light. So now he's sharing all the secrets that the dark side is using. And therefore the light warriors, the higher light hierarchs are aware of, because he's given them all these cues, just like this other
Mhm.
person you were talking about. So this even takes place in higher dimensions. People think all this just happens in the lower dimensions. No, a lot of this stuff, because we're talking energy and these different levels of frequency. So this even takes place in the upper dimensions. These, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, a lot
because
of this.
we're terrestrial in human form, they're extraterrestrial in energetic bodies. So
Correct.
they're still living a similar life. I mean, I've seen this in my visions, and I've gone to different, levels
Mhm.
and experienced it firsthand from my higher self's point of view. So I
Mhm.
get it. I get it.
Mhm.
This and then all the
Mhm.
stuff that you read always just jingles. So many things just start jingling in my head, like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh, all
So
right.
it's
Let's
funny. I want to really get to this next one, because it also
yes,
talks about
please.
free will. It says, you have free will, and peace is a choice. Smile within as you feel the love that is all around you, that is unseen. Transcend this reality by connecting to higher dimensions within. The moment you awaken to these other realities, you come to remember that you are a multidimensional being filled with many dimensions and densities. And you'll hear this a lot. You're like, oh, you're a multidimensional being. You're a like, well, they don't, people don't understand how to process this. And it's like, well, that is because all these densities, energy, and all these dimensions are within you. So that's what makes a person multidimensional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, the free will, with the peace, and you can choose peace or hatred or prejudice or lies and deception, or you can choose to stand on the side of the light and say, no, I will not make this, I will make the choice, even if it's not popular, even if it's not in my personal best interest, and it's in the best interest of everyone involved instead. And so, again, with every choice we make, we have free will to make a good choice or not so good choice. It's for light or darkness. And that's really how that shows what powerful beings we are, that we are creating a lot of this energy, this dark energy on the planet, with thought forms, negative thought forms, or hatred in our heart, the energy that comes out of us, because we are always residing in different densities and energetic levels. And so, always kind of, I would say, just being checking ourselves at all times with that as well.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking about the fact that, us who are a little older and experienced and aware of our multidimensional self, right? You know, we, even if we're not aware of it, let's just say a parent looks back at a teenager about to do something, and you're like, oh, it's a phase, and it's going to
Mhm.
pass, but you got to live through it with them. But
Mhm.
sometimes parents today like to get in there and fix everything and change everything and have too many conversations instead of just letting them
Mhm.
figure out their path and just sit back and smile, knowing that at the end of the day, or days, however long it takes,
Mhm.
that this is a phase in which they're going through, and just hold the space and hold the love for them, because they will figure it out. They will navigate, they will figure out how to maneuver and work their systems.
You just described source. That's exactly what source does with us. The source, there was a woman who, I put it as a direct quote in one of my books. I think it was Master Plan Teachers, and she was under sacred ceremony, under ayahuasca sacred ceremony, and something was revealed to her. And one of the things that was revealed to her, many was, and she got to step in and just feel the sensation of how Source views us. And what came out of it was Source viewed us as basically young children, young souls growing up. This is part of the Earth School, is part of our growth. Part of growing up is making poor choices and learning from those poor choices. We're allowed to make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. We're going to make mistakes. That's just the way it is, as part of evolutionary growth. And so in the Earth School, it's kind of like you're not really you know, punished in the sense that really you punish yourself. Really, when you go through the life review, it's not being judged. You actually judge yourself based on what you are experiencing through going through your life review. And basically at that end of that life review, there is a certain frequency level that is shown that you have arrived at, and then you go to that dimension, that dimensional frequency that is a frequency match that dimension. And so it's just so interesting how it's just funny when you were describing that, like, well, that's how Source views us. It's like, oh, they'll learn from their lessons, and that's why you go to school. You go to the Earth School.
Yeah, and I'm getting this, like, when your kids are little and they get about 2 years old and they learn their words, it's always why, and a parent's always like, because, why, and then you get to the next sibling and it happens, and you find yourself going, why, I don't know why. you know and then if you hear somebody else's child doing it, you just want to exit the room, because you're like, oh dear God. But then 20, 30 years later, you look back and you go, oh, what a sweet phase that was. What an innocent phase that was. And how quickly they move past that phase. It's a blip. It's a bleep. But while you're in it, it might feel like an eternity. Because if you ever been around a 2-year-old that's like, why, for like weeks on end, why? It's like, and I often see my guides banging their heads against the nearest cloud when I go through my own shitola. It's like, and I'll look up and I'm like, just give me a minute. I need to do this.
Oh, it's funny. You should hear what I say to my guides. I'm like, hey, you're not the one down here.
Yeah.
I'm the one stuck in physical form having to deal with all these situations. So, yeah,
And
I'll say
lots
it's
of times
easy for you to say.
yeah.
You're not the one down here in the midst of all this.
And that's so hilarious, because usually those conversations, we're alone in a room, but we think we've got all these people around us, which we do energetically. And we're just like, blah, 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 blah.
Well, sometimes you just can't say it on the inner. If you're alone, you can say it on the outer. It's like, okay, give me a minute, like you said.
Yes, exactly.
Oh
All
gosh.
right, let's get through one more, shall
Oh.
we?
Okay, we're at the bottom of page 8. For those who have purchased the book and have followed it, following along with us, challenges in the form of problems will come. It's so funny how we just talked about that. Do everything you can to resolve them as best you can. Then release them to your higher self and ask for the best possible outcome for everyone involved. Once released, then surrender your attention to the problem and say, "Thy will be done." Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, your spirit guides aren't saying don't do nothing. You know, they're not. They want you to do. If you need to connect with somebody, well, you need to pick up the phone and call them or text them or email them. You know, that you need to get this situation resolved that you find yourself in. Yes, by all means, do everything you can do to get it resolved. But at some point, then you can just surrender it. And I had, I'll give you an example. I approached a university to teach some classes. And well, it was interesting how they and I shared with them the 4 books that I've written and published, and I had the credentials, you know, having a PhD in mystical research. So I was qualified to teach the class there at university level, and which tells us quite something about our educational level, because they said, well, we find your topics very interesting, but we just don't know if people would be interested in attending your classes. And I think the faculty just didn't know what to do with my type of curriculum that I had written. And so I said, that's fine. I surrendered it. And I said, well, if I meant to teach classes here in Sedona, an opportunity will come. Well, an opportunity presented itself, and I'm going to be teaching classes at a place in, it's called Raven's Call in Sedona. And we're going to try to start in March. We'll see. It might be April. We want to give it enough time to market it so people know, but I will be teaching 4 classes every Saturday, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and on 2 of my books. And then the following week, I'll do the other 2 books, one in the morning, one in that. So in the afternoon, so I'll do like a 10 o'clock to 12, and then from 1 to 3. So it's so interesting how when I just released it, and I was like, okay, that's, you know, maybe now's not the time. I'm in the middle of still writing my 5th book, so it's okay. And it's almost like sometimes when you just surrender it over to your higher self, that's when sometimes things really start to work. You know, we do our part, but and then another opportunity presents itself. And I think that our spirit guides try to work with what presents itself, and then if something doesn't work one direction, then they start working behind the scenes to open up other opportunities for us. Because if spirit really wants us to do something, somehow some way the doors are going to open. So I'm encouraging all those folks out there that if there's something that really spirit wants you to do, don't worry, the opportunities will present them to you. You just have to be willing to say yes. That's the main thing, is showing up every day and saying yes in service to the divine plan, and then just watch what happens. I mean, we do our part, you know. I presented myself, and then yeah, it's just amazing.
Well, I think that we also have to have a level of detachment to the outcome and the expectations. It's hard because we're human, and we know
Mhm.
what it could mean if we happen to be able to step in to a specific role, job, or duty, or something that we really want. And if you ever notice, it's like the times where you don't have any money and you're scraping everything together, and then the times where you know you're okay and you're like, if I get this work order or this deal, whatever, it's like they come flooding at you.
Mhm.
So if we start to pay attention about that, what the energy presents, because it presents first, because it's
Mhm.
surrounding the body, right? um so yeah, but congratulations on letting thy will be done and letting your expectation go and watching it turn back around and
Mhm.
manifest into a position for teaching at a location that's probably a lot more desirable for you.
Yes, yeah, it's a it's a healing and spiritual center. Actually, she actually has a classroom. One of the rooms in her center is for specifically for teaching classes, and she opened it up for people to be able to heal themselves physically, but also heal themselves spiritually, and be able to have access to these spiritual truths. And so it just, I mean, it was, her classroom was sitting empty. And I was actually doing a filming at the time, me and the crew, my tech crew, was doing filming, and she was invited. I did not know her. I knew of her, and Lori, and but the person that I was doing it was a despacho ceremony, and Emily, the Peruvian trained shaman, who's doing the despacho ceremony, which is being filmed. And at some point, it'll be it's in process of being edited. So at some point, it'll be on my channel, YouTube channel. But so she was there, and I said, "Oh, I've been meaning to talk with you because she also does massage therapy." And it's like, "Oh, I was gonna call you. I've been meaning to call you to get a massage." And then I thought at that point, and I didn't even bring it up. It's actually she brought it up when the conversation came that, "Oh, you're a published author, you have all these 4 books." I said, "Yes, I didn't write books to sell books. I actually I created the books and researched and wrote the books and published the books as curriculum for retreats and workshops and seminars and classes and that sort of thing." She goes, "Classes?" She says, "I have a whole classroom that's empty. I'd love to have you come and teach." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is like incredible." So yeah, and she actually lives 2 blocks from me. It's too funny. I can just walk to her house. It's just so interesting how spirit just all of a sudden, when it's right, everything just opens up the doors. So I had surrendered it. I wasn't exactly, I thought, well, maybe if I just opened up a Saturdays on a regular basis, just one day a week to do some teaching on the classes, because there's things that I can go into deeper in the class that I can't necessarily go into on the internet. And part of it
Yes.
is the questions, because I always end with a Q&A, like 30 minutes at the end of a Q&A. And a lot of times these questions that come up are so deep that everybody else in the audience learns as a result of all these other questions that start coming up. They're like, "Oh, that's a good question." Oh, and I've been there, trust me. When I was up and coming through the ranks and was a spiritual student myself for years, people would ask these such deep questions like, "Well, good one. I never thought about that one. How's you're going to answer that?" And it's just I learned volumes a lot of times just from the questions at the very end. So of course the teaching content as well. But so yeah, it really, I mean, this is an encouragement for everybody online that if your heart's in the right place, spirit will put you where you're best suited in the best situation possible as well. And the minute I met Lori, I just loved her energy. She's been there for 15 years. She's well established. And so yes, I'm really excited. So anybody who finds themselves in the Sedona area, every Saturday morning I have a class, and every Saturday afternoon I'll have a class, and probably in the next a month or so, and I'll start doing that. So it opens it up for people to be able to sit in person and ask the questions, and I think it's kind of nice opportunity for people.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Will you advertise on your website?
I will, yeah, once it gets
Wonderful, which will
going.
be linked below. Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Keep it spiritually simple. Please do remember to like, subscribe, and share. And Dr. Nancy, remember, you are a piece of source.
That's right.
And you are a piece of source, and I am a piece of source. And everyone listening is a piece of source. All right. We'll see everybody on the next episode of Keep It Spiritually Simple. Say goodbye, Dr. Nancy.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.